So we want to talk about this Indian, about another, about humility, another, and about gaiva. Gaiva is arrogance. To understand, like, really, what is not humility? What does it mean to be humble? What does it mean? What's the purpose? So on this, Mamash asked me today's questions is if the purpose is, I didn't say it is, but if the purpose is to transcend the ego, which would seem to be some of the purposes. If the purpose is to transcend the ego, so why were we created with an ego? And not only created with an ego, this is the question the person asked. I'm not saying it was a good question. This is the question. And the person is created with the ego. Why is the ego the first thing that happens to a human being? Like, even before a person gets a neshama, a person gets a soul. Right? The knesses and the neshama occurs in the process. It occurs 8 days, and it occurs by bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah, and then 20 years, 40 years, 50 years. It's like it's a process, the neshama to come in. So then why is there an ego? So we have to understand what is a healthy understanding of the ego. That's what we want to understand. What's a healthy ego? What's an unhealthy ego? And it's a big topic, so let's get straight into it. We're going to do this mamash a little reverse. We're going to start with the Baal Shem, because he talks about this idea in Chukas.
What do we mean by ego?
It's a good question. That's another question. The sense of, we'll see what it means. But the ego, I would say, the very simple level is your instinctive narrative. So there's a narrative that you have because of accumulation of experiences, and then there's like this certain inclination. We'll say like the Yetzer means an inclination towards something. So one person is born that they're talented for this. One person is born that they're sort of melancholy. Some people are born that have an easier disposition, like this natural inclination. And because of that existence, that need to be that way, you eat, you sleep. Like the Medrash says, Toiv Ma'od, on the word Toiv Ma'od, that is very good, is that Toiv is the Yetzer Toiv, is the good inclination, and Toiv Ma'od, very good, is the Yetzer Hara, which it doesn't mean the Yetzer Hara, it doesn't mean the negative inclination, but it means the inclination towards the ego, to self-serve, to eat, to drink, to make sure that, like the Medrash said, the person wouldn't work, a person wouldn't drink, a person wouldn't sleep. And that's the Medrash Breish's job. And the Tanchuma Breishis actually says that Yetzer Hara sha'ato iso yisera, that it's called the Yetzer Hara because you actually make it bad. You make it evil. It means it's born with a natural ego inclination, and ego turns into evil. If you're thirsty and you're walking down the street and you see a little child holding a cup of water, your ego says that I'm thirsty, therefore I need this cup of water. The evil part of it is when you snatch the water out of the kid's hand and you drink it, right? So the ego is saying, okay, I need to go to the cup of water. I have to go buy it or figure this out. So it's not like it's just when something turns and it becomes me versus you. That's when it becomes evil. When it's about me and you, then it's okay. That's the ego. But it becomes evil is when it's me or you. So either I take the drink or you take the drink, or I take it away from you. That's already when something's transformed into something evil. But let's go step by step. So in the pasuk, Gedaver b'nei Yisrael v'yikach lakar parah aduma. So the Baal Shem, so there's a Torah from the Baal Shem like this. Every single mitzvah is eternal. Even though they're bepoiled as manomais, even though they have a particular time and space. However, on the level of conception, the level of ideas, it's eternal. The person has to understand the mitzvahs in all times and all periods. And what is this idea of the mitzvah parah aduma, which is the story of the red high for this parah aduma? What's the mitzvah? The mitzvah is that one of the things that it says why it's called a chukah, a choik, which means a choik means like a transcendent of understanding, that we don't have an understanding. Why is it called a choik? Is because it's matayas atmei and matamas torim. It purifies those who are impure, and it makes the person that's the kohen that's giving out doing through this process, he becomes impure. So they asked, what is Baal Shem? So the Baal Shem said, what does this mean? This is the idea of arrogance or ego. So if a person is serving Hashem and it's not working out, he's not doing it correctly. So what you should do is you should start shaloi lishma. You should start for the proper intention, And Shalom Lishma could be Lispares, to make yourself big, to make yourself important, or or that you should merit to have a place in the world to come, or to feel like you're doing Hashem's work, that Hashem needs you. That a person can use this type of arrogance, that the beginning of a person's service, when it says that that forever a person should do shaloi lishma, and from the loy lishma, from not the positive intention, you get to the positive intention. When it says la'olam, it makes it sound like that's actually the correct way to do it. La'olam, this is the way you should do it. So the Baal Shem says it actually is this way. That if in order for a person to get into something, you have to start off with some type of alternative intention. You have to have some type of alternative reason for it. Like if you're 15 years old and you want to sit and learn, you can't say, okay, you're going to learn because you want to dveikus, you want to be connected to Hashem, Torah Lishma. When you're 15 years old, that's not really probably a thing. It could be, but it's probably not. When you start off, whenever you're starting, the starting point is saying, I have some invested interest in this. I can personally gain from this, whatever it is. I can gain power, fame, money, whatever lishma is, and then you get into it, and then you get to a point where you can let go of it. So it's mitayer esatmeim. That gaiva, that arrogance, is mitayer, purifies the impure because like it says about Noach. The Noach is miktane emunah. Noach was a small believer. Why was he a small believer? Because if he would have believed, Noach would have believed that his tefillah, his davening would actually have an effect, that it would not have the flood. He would have davened. That the reason why Noach didn't daven, why isn't Noach daven? Moshe davens, Avraham davens, Noach doesn't daven. Why isn't Noach daven? Because the Zohar says he's a raya shatya, he's a foolish shepherd. Why doesn't he daven? He doesn't daven because he says, I can, it's my tefillah, my prayers, it's not going to work. It's impossible. Hashem says there's going to be a flood. There's going to be a flood. So what's little me able to do? So really, the chesaron, his downfall was actually his lack of belief in himself, his lack of belief that he had power and to do it. So the beginning of and there's a Torah from Baal Shem, and the Torah brings it down also, that the reason why people don't daven really with correct kavanah, with correct intention, is because you actually don't think your tefillah is really going to make an effect, going to actually change something. So therefore, this is the shaloi lishma. You start with shaloi lishma for the purpose of what could I gain out of this, and then so that's mitayer satmeim. It purifies the impure, and then he says. So therefore, Nusach voice that there's the reverse of that is that it also brings impurity to someone that's already pure. If you're already doing Torah Lishma, you're doing it for the right intention, then you put in your arrogance, that causes your downfall. Okay, so this is the idea of Gaiva. I don't want to say that we exhausted the whole Torah of Baal Shem on this topic, but we're seeing that there's it's a double-edged sword. There's a possibility that you can use it for positive, and there's a possibility you can use for the negative. And if you're already familiar with a lot of things that we've been saying about the Torah of Baal Shem, Torah Chassid, this is really the Torah of unity, of Yichud. If it's a Torah of unity, of Yichud, Yichida, then it has to be some type of understanding that both these things can be simultaneously true. We have to get to that point where you can have arrogance and humility simultaneously, and what that actually means. How would that look like? But let's start with Rambam. So the Rambam starts in Hilchos Deis. This is now Halacha Aleph in Hilchos Deis. So the Rambam talks about the different types of Deis means types of traits, like we'll call a person's midas, a person's attributes, and the Rambam says that haderech hayishara in Dalet, Halacha Dalet, the derech hayishara, which means the proper way, the correct way, he midas beininis shebachol dea, which is like the middle path, called the shvil hazav, the golden path. The best, the derech hayishara, the correct path is to be in the middle path. V'hi dea sheyirchoyk mishnei aktzavos. And it's one it's balanced between the both extremes. And then the Rambam explains what that means, how would that look. A person should be, in any disposition, a person should always see what is the correct mode. The derech hayishara is the middle path. That's the Rambam's opinion. Then the Rambam continues and says, "Mishu b'daknas be yoyis v'isachim b'dei beininis nikra chosid." Now, if you're someone that does lefnim mishuras more than the letter of the law, so the derech yishar, the correct path is to do the midas habenis, which is the middle path. If you're a chassid, someone that wants to go to the extreme, someone that wants to go beyond the letter of the law, so then what does this person do? You should go away from arrogance till the other extreme, and you should be a complete shval ruach, a complete humble person. That is the midah of chassidus. So here the Rambam is saying very clearly one thing: there's derech yishar, which is the correct path. Where there's the correct path, there's like you're not completely humble, you're not completely arrogant, you're somehow in this midas habenis, in this middle path. That would be the correct path. But if you're a chassid, you'd be completely a shval ruach. You'd go all the way to the place where you're completely humble. So that's a midas of chassidus. That's attribute of chassidus, an extra measure. This is what he writes in halacha aleph, in Perek Aleph, halacha Perek Aleph, halacha Daled and Hey.
So why in halacha Gimel he says that it's not good to go one side completely?
Oh, so you could say that okay, wait, this is part of the question that we're asked. Because the simple answer to that question is that he's talking about a derech yeshara, the correct path, and midas chassidus.
But then he says it's no good in Gimel.
What? It's no good.
So, ain't a derech tova.
Ain't a derech tova.
It's not a good way.
Exactly.
Derech chassidus is not a that way. It's pretty good.
Okay, I'm going to get to that. I got that. I'm going to get to this question. So no, but you could say simply the Rambam is saying that the Rambam is saying in this particular midah of anova here. In other words, the general rule is beinanis, the middle path. Anova is a special particular thing where.
Like if the Kas, he also says.
Yeah, Kas and Gaiv is the same thing. I don't want to talk about Kas, but the Kas and Gaiv is the same thing. I just want to show you that how the Rambam seems to contradict himself where it comes to Perek Beis, halacha Gimel. Because in Perek Beis, halacha Gimel, the Rambam now says, "V'yesh deish asa adam linag bebeninus." There is another path that a person is not. There's certain attributes that a person is not allowed to do the middle path. And what is that? You should go to the extreme. That is arrogance. The truth is that, and that you actually have to go to the extreme, and you have to be completely a humble person. So the Ram actually contradicts himself. Over here he says that it's a midas chassidus to do this. That's actually something extra. Here the Ram is saying the halacha is you should be a shval ruach completely. So what is actually the Ram saying? Is being arrogant? Is arrogance like sort of like a midas chassidus that you shouldn't be arrogant completely? A little bit of arrogance is okay, and the extreme arrogance, a complete shval ruach, a completely humble person is chassidus, to be a midas chassidus, or is shval ruach actually to be humble? That is actually the correct way to be. That's not a midas chassidus. That's the derech sheyas adam. That's the way a person should do it, right? So the Rambam seems to contradict himself. Yeah, right. Okay, so you can't quote AriZal for the Rambam because the Rambam knew those AriZal also. Right. So I'm saying, in other words, yeah, there's a AriZal like this, but it says a you can say a bunch of back and forth statements. We're talking about in the Rambam's conception of what the idea of arrogance is. Is arrogance is the concept of arrogance that you're supposed to eliminate arrogance because it's midas chassidus, like it's an extra thing to do, or that's actually the correct way to live, to live with no arrogance.
Okay, but is it also is it talking about acting?
So actually this is very interesting. So I brought a sefer and I left it there, but the sefer that I brought that I was going to bring here was a sefer by Amaspik Loiv da Shem, which Amaspik Loiv da Shem is written by the son of the Rambam, Rav Rambam. And in there he has a chapter that's on anova, on humility, and he defines things and says, for example, the piece that I wanted to show you is where he talks about the whole idea of being humble. Of course, he talks about the idea of to be humble, and then he says that there are certain people that it demands of them that they should be. I don't use the word arrogance because that's like a wrong word, but gaiva, like stolzkeit. Yeah, I don't know how to translate that, but holding themselves correctly. So he says, for example, a melech, a king. A king can be a shval ruach because it's suntas alach melech. You actually have to have fear when you see the king's presence. It should evoke a certain level of derech eretz, of respect. So the melech is, I'm nobody, I'm nothing. And this doesn't work. So the Rambam, the Rambam and Rambam makes a distinction between another pnimius and another chitzonius, or gaiva pnimius and gaiva chitzonius, which is external and internal. Which means he says like this: the king has to present himself, project Gestaltkeit. He has to present himself as a king, which demands respect. But internally, he has to be an honor, shval ruach betzim. He has to be internally. He has to be complete shval ruach. So outwardly, he expresses one emotion. He emotes a certain way of being, but internally, he's actually a really big, a complete humble person. So this is the Rambam's son talking about what proper humility is, and you can actually read this back into the Rambam, especially if you learn Shmoyne Prakim. But you can read this back into the Rambam. That the Rambam is basically saying like this: that there is the correct manner to be is internally to be a shval ruach be'etzem. Sorry. That there is the opposite. That the deish also you're not allowed to act arrogant at all. You should never act arrogant at all. But you can say it both ways. The other way around. That you have to eliminate arrogance from yourself completely. That's the derech. That's the correct way the person should be correct way. But in terms of their external action, you could act a certain way, and the midas chassidus is to act in a way that you're shval ruach completely. So the question is, do you defend your honor? So maybe mitzat chassidus, maybe you don't have to defend your honor. Like if someone sits on your seat, I don't know, some like narish thing. So you could say, okay, well, I don't really care. I can defend. I don't have to defend it. But in essence of who you are, how you feel it, how you're experiencing it, is actually the derech yishar is that you should be completely humble. So humility as an experience, as how you feel, has to be complete humility, no arrogance whatsoever. But it's possible something to act arrogant, and the idea of a chassid is not to act arrogant at all. So that would be the reconciliation of the Rambam, which the Rambam was talking about two types of arrogance.
Rambam uses the same type of thing by parenting, by presenting yourself.
With kasim. Yeah, the same thing with kasim.
Same thing. Externally, you're projecting.
Correct.
You
But
but be in a place of
correct. How you discipline your children, you can act a certain way because that's the way the child will respond. But in yourself, you're completely not angry. So this is like a type of gaiva, a type of arrogance that you're projecting. You're wearing this gaiva for the external purposes. And actually, if you look in the next source, this is actually literally what the Baal Shem says with regards to this pasuk, where it says Hashem Melech Geios Lavish, where it says Hashem is a king that dresses up with the garment of gaiva. So what does it mean? It says the Gemara says that anytime you see Hashem's godless, greatness, bigness. That what is Hashem the Gadol? Gadol is that Hashem is a Rachman. So Gadol, the greatness, is when Hashem has Avasusay, which is humility. Where do you see that? So you see, because what it means, where you see it is Shapir Shukach, Ki Hashem Malach Geiz Lavish Hainu Shiraka Levushu Gaiva. What does it mean Hashem Malach Geiz Lavish? Hashem dresses himself in the garment of Gaiva. But if you want to know what is the real midah of Kadosh Baruch Hu, of course we can't quantify that. But if you want to say what the real midah of Kadosh Baruch Hu is anava, is shval. That's obviously in terms of how it's expressing to us, however we understand it, the Gemara. But the idea is that there's a type of gaiva, a type of arrogance where you wear it to affect a certain type of thing that you need to do. In other words, if you're you have a company and you're the boss of the company, you have to project yourself correct way and say, oh, whatever you do is fine, like whatever, I don't really care. No, it's not going to work. You have to, but you shouldn't be coming from a place of arrogance, which is, oh, I'm really the most important person in the room and really my opinion really matters. No, this is what Hashem wanted for me to be in this position, therefore I have to emote this type of positioning of saying that I have this, I'm emoting this type of power. Okay. Now, we're going to go to the next one, then we'll back it in like this. Actually, no, we can go like this. There's a concept. Now, there's a famous big concept which is called yesh ma'ayin. The bria, the creation, is created yesh ma'ayin, something from nothing. So, what does something from nothing mean? Something from nothing means that there is the created reality, which is the something, the yesh of the existence, and existence comes from an emptiness, of nothingness. Now, it's not a nothingness because it's actually the boira. Hashem created the world. So what does it actually? How does this mean? So what is it? Why is it called ayin? So the way the Mukabalim write, the way the Ramak writes about this, not Mamish Dari because Dari doesn't, but the way the Ramak writes it, because ayin in Torah Ramak, this idea of ayin of nothingness is actually the Ein Sof. So the way the Ramak writes it is that it's ayin because it's beyond our conception, beyond our comprehension. So when we say that the world is created ex nihilo, something from nothing, we don't really mean nothing. Of course, it's to everything. But in our understanding of it, because it's transcendent of our understanding, we call that a nothingness. Okay, so the ayin is the ayin lefi erech in our conception, our understanding of it.
Is ayin toy?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, ayin is doing. Yeah, that's correct. If you look in the Ramban, if you look in the beginning in the Ramban, even this is like when he says Bereshis bara, the word bara. The Ramban says whenever the word bara comes in creation, because there's yatzar and also there's different phrases in creation, when you say the word bara, it's a bri yesh ma'ayin. It's a creation from nothing to something. That's why the bara only appears 3 times in the creation story. It gets over there, and it's by the Liyasa and by Adam, because they're all a type of bria chadasha. It's like a new type of creation that comes from nothingness, like from a totally radical new type of creation. So you have ayin. Now, the boira, the creator, is the yesh, is yesh amiti, is the real existence. So there's yesh amiti, true existence, ultimate existence. Then there's physical existence, or our existence, which we call yesh anivra, the created reality, physical existence, which means time and space and consciousness, which is olam shal nefesh. That means it has something. And in between kaviyachol, in between the yesh haboira, or the yesh amiti, the real yesh, and the yesh hanivra, there's an ayin in between. Okay, there's an ayin, so the yesh amiti creates the ayin, and the ayin creates the yesh. That's the way we're understanding it. This is a little bit already in the Torah Sari. In the Torah Sari you also find this in the Ramak, but in the Torah Sari, specifically, the ayin is already a reflection of the Oyer Ein Sof, is already a reflection from the Moyer, from the source of the light. The Oyer Ein Sof is not the light itself. It's Oyer Ein Sofius. When you say that it's Oyer Ein Sof, it's infinite light, it doesn't say Oyer Ein Lo Tchila. It says Ein Lo Tchila, it doesn't have a beginning, then it's actually the mocker, but it's not the source. You say that it's Oyer Ein Sofius. Oyer Ein Sofius means, Oyer Ein Sof means that it's a light that's infinite, which means it had a beginning. If it had a beginning, it means something that preceded it. What's preceding the light? The source of the light, the Moyer. Ba'orcha near Oyer. So in Ba'orcha, in your light, we see light. Light is already a reflection of the essence of the light. Okay, so it's like Ki'ilu, like the Shemesh, the Shemesh, the sun itself, and the rays of the sun. So you're seeing. Right, yeah, there's actually no Magal Tefach at all. There's not Magal at anything. It's not revealing of the essence, it's a reflection from it. When you see the light, you're not seeing the Mar, you're not seeing the source of the light. Okay? This is the way it would be understood. In again, it's hinted to in the Pardes from the Ramak, but it's specifically found in the Torah of the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Chabad Rebbe. And then it became popular. Today it's already a thing that a lot of people talk about it. But the market for this idea is really in the Torah of the Rebbe Rashab. In the Maimon, it's called Tafresh Ayin Beis. There's 2 very famous Hasidic discourses by the Rebbe Rashab. One is Tafresh Samach Vav, called Samach Vav, and one is called Ayin Beis. Okay, these are very famous in the certain circles. They're very famous. Tafresh Ayin Beis is a very, very complicated text. It's like a few thousand pages, and it's a very, very complicated text. He said it over a few years, and it was condensed into like a book. In there, he talks about an Inyan, which we're just going to start the concept to understand a little bit how we'll understand this, how it's related to our conversation. So you see from the 2 lines in the middle, this is Ayin Beis, and this is a Maimon that was said in Tafresh Ayin Vav. So L'chavin Zeyesh Lahak Namash is Baal Yel Sheyesh Gimel Adegis Yesh Ayin V'Yesh. that there's three levels. There's yesh, ayin, v'yesh. Yesh harishon hu bechinas yesh amiti. The first yesh, right? The first existence is the yesh amiti, the ultimate existence. Bechinas atzmas ein soif, shamiti soyasa. That's the essence of the Creator. V'yesh hasheni hu yesh hanivroim. The second yesh is the yesh hanivroim, which was the creation. V'ayin hu mutzav nemsa. The ayin, what is the ayin? That is what is in between the two yesh. V'ina ayin hamamutzav bechinas yesh amiti v'yesh hanivro yedu shu nichel kol shtayim. That in the ayin itself, that is a mamutza, there's an intermediary between the yesh miti and the yesh nivra. That in itself is divided into two. The ayin of the yesh amiti is not the ayin that gives rise to the yesh nivra. Okay, what is he saying? In simple language, or try to bring it down to simple language, is that it actually works in four stages. Yesh, ayin, ayin, yesh. There is the reflection of the essence, which is considered ein soif, ein soif. But that ein soif, then there's a reflection of that ayin, which becomes the makar, the source of the nivra. And the source of the nivra then creates the yesh amiti. So there's four madregas. Yesh, ayin, ayin, yesh. Okay, let's just hold this thought for a second. What it actually this means. Yesh, ayin, ayin, yesh. Yesh means the yesh amiti, the ultimate eye, the ultimate eye. Then there's the reflection of that, which is the infinity that comes from the ultimate eye. Then there's infinity that is a source for finitude. That would be the four stages. Okay, there's like some type of structure like that, where there's the essence, infinity that's relatable to finitude, that infinity creates finitude, which is the creation. Okay, hold that thought for a second. Next source. This is Yuvan Zabahaktim. So this is from Likkutei Sichos. This is from the Lubavitcher, from the Rambam. That the Gemara ends in Soita that says, "Lo tisani anav dikana." The Gemara, there's a mission over there that talks about and says that says and it says about all these people when they died, when they passed on from this world, that thing was in this battle. That thing was no longer. So Rabbi Yossi said, "Lo tisani anav dikana." Don't erase humility because there's still I. I'm still here, and I'm a humble guy. Now, this is a very paradoxical statement, seemingly. Like Rashi's read, because I'm actually the one that's humble. So that seems to be a statement that's the opposite of humble. And either the Mishnah says that there's no longer humble people, and one person says, no, there is a humble person, it's I. I'm the humble person. What does that actually mean? So he says very, very simple. Beer was a shiflus. It doesn't mean shiflus means that you have nothing. I say I'm a nothing. That's what people think of humility. They think that person says I'm nothing. He says no, that's not what an onav is. An onav is be'emesu isha milas v'yedei makis erchlei. Someone that actually knows his milas, knows who he is, knows his value. Still, he doesn't say, I'm better than you. Why? He knows that these powers are given to Hashem. He makes a simple chayim. He says, I'm so brilliant. Yeah, maybe you are brilliant. But who made you brilliant? Your creator brilliant. That Hashem gave you the gift. And if someone would be brilliant as you, they would be better than you in this thing. So the Nava is not saying I'm nothing. It's saying I'm something. I can be very big. I can be a very big person. I can be very smart, and I can be very loving. I can be very creative. Whatever I am in this world, I could be that in a very big level, and I can say it. But I'm totally humble because I recognize that this is a gift that Hashem gave to me. And in this gift that Hashem gave to me, I recognize that if someone had this gift, they may do it even a little better. So we have to understand that what is anava? Anava doesn't mean shiftless. Anava doesn't mean that I'm nothing. That I say I don't exist. I'm just a nobody. You know, I'm not a nobody. But anava means I recognize that I recognize my talents. I recognize who I am, and in that, I'm living in a state of humility. One last source is the source of the Noam Melech. So the Noam Melech, in general, the Noam Melech it's a very hard sefer to understand. And a lot of times the Torah is very, very complicated. But here's a Torah that you can actually wrap your heads around. So the Gemara says like this. The Gemara says in Sukkah that Hillel said that Hillel used to come to the Simchas Beis Sheva, and Hillel was the famous Onav, the famous humble person, and he used to say like this: Imani kan, if I'm here, Hako kan, everyone's here. V'imeni kan, if I'm not here, Mikan, who's here? So it's like the guy, you have a big party, a big assembly of people, and the guy walks into the room, like the music is waiting for people to come, and the guy walks in and says, okay, let the party begin, I'm here. Whoa, we're waiting for 100 people. You're just the 10th guy walked in. He says, Imanikan, if I'm here, everyone's here. Let's get it rolling. Imanikan, if I didn't show up, you can wait the whole night. But if I'm not showing up, the party's not starting. Hillel was saying that? That doesn't really make any sense. Like this. You know, Adam who beloy kloive einach bilti afshe shiyem Adam al atzma anihu. Shemash dav chasham mamash al adam kein nach shem like Adam mamash chatzma kedush sabay zbarach o mash chinas kedush al dikani. This is what he says. Let me finish. I think what he's saying is like this. That there's the I of self. Okay. And now we're going to get to the source of the ego. What are we talking about? Because this is the conversation. What are we really talking about? There's the I of the self. I have my small I. We'll call it the small I. The small I need. There's a small I, and the small I has a birth already. There's a certain genetic pattern that I'm born with, a certain genes, environment, culture, whatever. This is already there's a certain package. We'll say it's like there's a certain context that I'm born into, right? Every person is born into a certain context. This is the body you're going to serve. This is the place you're going to be born into. This is the environment that you can create it to. That's the context of your life. The context of your life is and then you live out your story. Normally, you're trying to fill out that story, that content of your story, according to the context that you have. That's your small I, okay? And in your small I, when the small I is in a state of being a small I, just a little I, when the small I is in being a state of small I, it's just about me. My life is just about me. So if I was born in this thing and I have to eat and drink because that's what my I serves to help me eat and drink, then I just expand that, and I'm 40 years old, I'm doing the exact same thing as a 2-year-old. What does a 2-year-old do? A 2-year-old just this once to survive. And that's healthy for a 2-year-old, because if a baby doesn't cry in the middle of the night because it's hungry, the baby, God forbid, chas v'shalom, will be hurt or could be injured. So the ego, which is the sense of self that says I need to survive, is when a person is a young child, it's all about the ego. It's all about me surviving and thriving. That's what I need to do. When a person is 40 years old and is doing the exact same thing, that's when we say that I is no longer a healthy I, because then it's all about you. So when a child throws a tantrum when they're 2 years old and they think the whole world revolves around them, that's actually a healthy state. Because, not a tantrum, but let's say they actually need attention because something's really bothering them. That's the only way they're going to get their attention of their parents, if they're going to scream. Because the world, for this child, in order for the child to survive, needs to actually believe that the world revolves, that the parents are there to serve them. But if you're 50 years old and you think the world is just there to serve you, and everything is just about how can I get from the world, what can I receive from everything, then you're living in a place of your small I. This small I, this little I, that's the place of your yeshus. That's yesh. That's the yesh of the yesh anivra. The yesh, the yesh of existence. I just need to serve my little I, and that's why I need to live. Then a person wants to grow and evolve and become bigger. So then what happens is, once we will say a person wants, there's like a personal state, and then there's a transpersonal state. So in a personal state, which is when we're children and we're younger, it's all about I. It's all about serving my I in order to exist. What's a transpersonal state? A transpersonal state means when I recognize that I exist, but so do you. So let's say there's a cup of water, or let's say there's a toy. So when I'm a child, when you're 2 years old, I just want the toy for myself. But if I'm 10 years old, I'll share the toy with you because I know you want the toy and I want the toy. So let's share it. Now, there's some people that are 50 years old and still don't want to let go of their toy, right? There's some people that are 50 years old that even though it's more sophisticated toys that they're talking about, but they're actually living like a little baby of 2 years old. Everything in the world is just about them and just want to receive from it. Okay, so this is a person that hasn't received on any level, some level of neshama. Some level of neshama. What's the neshama? What's the neshama element? On a very simple level, the neshama element allows for the person to have an experience that is transcendent of themselves. To recognize that it's true that I have an eye and I need to serve my eye and I need to be, but so do you. So that allows for the transcendence of self. So the first madrega, the first level, in order for a person to work on themselves, to be a healthy human being and a spiritual human being, and to work and to be a Baal, to actually be someone that's a correct person in this world, and go back to the Rambam to really be a shval ruach. What is it? What does a person do? A person works on their humility. Now, what is the humility? What is the humility aspect? The humility aspect is whatever you're going to tell yourself. You can tell yourself the humility aspect is that you have such capabilities, but you're not really doing what you could be doing. So you're saying, I'm a really great person. Everything really revolves around me. But then what you want to work on your humility. So your humility is to sort of break that ego. How do you break that ego? If I'm attached to that ego, that's about me. How do you break that ego? You're breaking the ego through humility. So humility is the ayin of the yesh. So there's the ayin that creates the yesh. The yesh is my existence. The ayin is the source, which is the non-existent state. So if I am tied to a story, are you following this pattern over here? If I exist in my story, and I'm very much connected to my story, I want to create some type of humility. What is humility? Humility is the ayin of the yesh. The ayin of the yesh hanivra. The ayin of the yesh hanivra. The nothingness that you're saying, I'm really not so special, and I'm not that you're not special. I'm not really I'm not utilizing my talents, and I'm not utilizing really what I could be doing in this world, and I could be such a better, I can learn so much more, and I could dominate so much more, I could be so much a better friend. All these things that you tell yourself, that's working on sort of we'll say the breaking of self. Now, the breaking of self, famously like the Kotzka said, when you break your midas, or you're trying to break your midas, what you end up happening is you actually have two midas. Now you have two negative midas. You have the broken midah, which doesn't disappear because that's the broken, it's still there. And now you have the little level of arrogance that you think is such a big person that you broke your midah. So you're actually left with nothing. So breaking the self is not the tachlis. But so then what do you do? So what is the tachlis? What is actually, how do you reach some type of level that you really transform? The highest level of transformation is not the breaking of the ego or the breaking of self, it's the transparency of self. Or the fluidity of self, but more the word will be like the transparency of self. What does it mean, the transparency of self? If I recognize that my I, okay, you exist, you have your life, you have your story. My I is ultimately an expression of Anochi Hashem Elokecha. It's Anochi Hashem Elokecha. There's the I of the Yesh HaNivra, of a Yesh HaMiti. Right? There's the eye of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. I don't know how we understand it, but let's say there's the eye of the Creator. Okay, the ultimate eye. The ultimate eye is called Anochi. What does Anochi mean? Ki ani. It's like an eye. That's what the Ramak writes. Kani is keser ani, or keser like the eye. But the keser, the ani is ani and ayin. It's the same letters, right? Ani and ayin is interchangeable. The ultimate eye of HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to express itself, however you want to understand this, through a created world. So if there's an isava, there's a desire for the creator, for the ultimate Yesh HaMiti to be expressed in Yesh HaNivra. So when the ultimate eye of the Yesh HaBoira of the Yesh HaMiti is being expressed, where is it being expressed? In the Yesh HaNivra. So who is my eye? What is really my eye? My real eye is not I'm nullified to the ayin. What my real eye is, I'm actually nothing more than an expression of the ultimate eye. But I need to come to that realization. If I live in a place where it's so again, there's two steps here. If I live in a place where it's my small eye, and I live in the narrative of my small eye, in my little ani, my little yesh hanivra, then I need to practice humility. What would be humility in this level? Humility would mean to break it a little bit. Now, obviously, we said it doesn't work, but at least that would be the first step. To say, get out of your head, you're not so important. To tell yourself that way, okay? Someone offended your honor. Someone offended something. You think this person, he didn't invite you to his chasana. I don't know if that's a thing, whatever. He didn't, didn't come to the Shiur brachos. Whoa, big deal. Okay, take it easy. Someone once came to Tzemach Tzedek and says, "Metretef mir," that wherever you go into the Beis Medrash, people are stepping all over him. He said, "Yeah, who asked you to be spashet all over the Beis Medrash? You spread yourself all over the Beis Medrash. No, everyone people walk. They're walking on you. No one's walking on you. No one cares about you. No one even notices you. You decided you're everywhere, and therefore everyone's stepping on you. So what are you doing? You're trying to humble that sense of I, that sense of arrogance that I'm everywhere. That's the first madrega. But like we said, that's only the first step. That's not the ultimate. The ultimate is really to get to a higher level of I, to get to the Yeshamiti, which is the understanding is that my I is actually an expression of the ultimate I. So let's go back to what Hillel is saying. Hillel is saying it like this. If the ultimate I of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is present here, and I recognize that my I, what is my I? Hashem wants to be expressed in this certain finite form called Chaim Yankel. I don't know why. This is Hashem's desire. Chaim Yankel should be born. This should be his body. This should be his environment. This should be in culture. This should be his nature. And the I of HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be expressed through this expression. So if a person recognizes that, what am I? I'm nothing more than actually an expression of the ultimate I. So my small I is an expression with the ultimate I. Ima nikan, then hakol kan. Because if my small I is actually one with the ultimate I, then who's here? Everyone's here. Because the ultimate I is here. Which means if I don't have that recognition that my I is still an I connected with the ultimate I, but I still think that my I is something different, I have my story. This is my life. This is my narrative. This is what I'm holding on to. Then Mikan, who are you? You're Sachakal, nothing. You're nothing. Which means, what is he telling himself? What is Hillel telling himself? Hillel is saying to himself, so now I'm going to work on humility. On the first level of humility, because I'm not being in the higher place, which is in Manikan. See, Manikan, then I don't know humility. So let's go back to the original thing. Humility, in a very paradoxical way, to be humble is contrast to be arrogance. But the problem with humility is that it's just a flip side of arrogance. It's actually part of the same thing. When a person says, I'm humble, you're humble. Okay, you're humble. Really what you're saying is, I exist, and I'm putting myself aside, but you still exist. You understand? So being humble is not the ultimate expression of the anikan.
Humility is just a response to the fact that I have.
It's part of it. It's the flip side of the same coin. If one side shows up that I'm so important, the other part is I'm so good that I can put my ego aside. But you're still so good. You're such a righteous person. I'm such a good person. It's still the same.
It's the same spectrum.
It's the same spectrum. Exactly.
Love and hate versus indifference.
Exactly. That's exactly the same spectrum. Love and hate is part of the same spectrum. It's just the opposite of that. So it's really part of the same narrative. So a person's working on humility and saying, "Oh, yeah, it doesn't matter. That's nothing. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's not."
It could be like a barometer.
Yeah.
To show where your real ego is. It's an indication.
Yeah, where your ultimate ego is. Yeah, avada. I'm saying if you're still working on humility, I want to tell you a moed l'kemaisa. This is what.
Two types of humility.
So I was going to say, two types, very very different types of humility. So there was once a mice like this that a mice with the Kotzker. Someone once came to the Kotzker and told him that he has his Rebbe. He didn't say his name. I'm not going to say his name. His Rebbe was a very humble person. He says, the Rebbe was a very humble person. So Kotzker said, tell me a Maisif. The Rebbe was such a humble person. Tell me such a story. He said, when my Rebbe's father passed away, so the custom is when they used to come into the city, they used to carry the Rebbe on the carriage. So they would unhinge the wagon from the horse, and they would carry the Rebbe on the wagon. This was a covet to carry the Rebbe. And the Rebbe, the new Rebbe that became the Rebbe, was very humble. So every time he came into the city, he would jump out of the wagon, and together he would carry the empty wagon with everybody else. Because it represented the wagon. One day, he was involved in learning or doing something. He was occupied, and he opened up the window and he realized already that everyone's out. The horse is already, it's unhinged from the horse, and they're carrying him. He said he was so disgusted by the gaiva, the arrogance that they were carrying me. He threw up. because that's how much it bothered him. And the Kotzker said, Nebuch, and Neb's Ernst. You understand? Nebuch, he's taking it seriously. You understand? It's humility is only the other side. It's part of the same spectrum of the arrogance. You're humble. Yeah, you're humble. It's just part of the same story. We have to change the story. This is what the anikan in anikan. Imein anikan mikan is part of that story. I'm humble and I'm not humble. I work on humility. That's one thing. But what is the ultimate idea of what is true humility? True humility is not an opposite of arrogance, of stolzkeit, of actually recognizing my qualities. True humility is I am just part of and one with the Rebbeinu Shalom, and that's it. I am. There's no other story. The story is that Hashem is reflecting through me. The big I is expressing through my small I at all times. That's the end of the story. Not about me, never about me, not about being humble, not about me. I'm breaking myself, not breaking myself. I'm just a conduit. What am I here? I'm just being a conduit of Hashem's being in this world. And this is the oimik of the idea of what is really gaiva. We talk about gaiva. Because when we're talking about gaiva, we're not talking about. It's not about you. If a person says, "I have tremendous talents to do something in this world," but me? I'm going to be. No one asked you. That's not the conversation. Hashem decided. You have talents. You could do something. Do it. If you're not doing it, you're wasting your life. It's a chil Hashem. Not because it's a chil Hashem, because it's chil Hashem because that's, if I don't want to talk about the parsha, but I'm trying to make it a little shorter. But that when Moshe Rabbeinu said it's this week's parsha, it's a moedik word. If you think about it, the story with the Mei Meriva, the story with the water, is that 40 years prior, the story happens 40 years later. 40 years prior, Hashem tells me, you should take a stick and hit the stone. And 40 years later, he says, you should speak to the stone. And Moshe did not speak to the stone. He hit the stone, and Gevalach, the worst thing that ever happened, that the lo himantim bi, he didn't believe in me, like the sheni, to sanctify my name in public. What did Moshe Rabbeinu do? Sachachal, what he did 40 years ago. 40 years ago he hit it, so now he hit it again. And what? And it's a bit. Oh, if he hits the stone, the water comes out. Small miracle. If you talk to the stone, water comes out. Bigger miracle. Really? When was the last time you hit a stone and water came out? By the way, the Rambam has a whole thing that surah maybe could be a type of stone that actually has water in it. Okay, but that's not pshat. So, what does it mean? The word is like this. Lo yamantri like lisheni. You can say ba'oimik. The word is like this. I know it doesn't say, but it's this. It's not me saying. It could stay like this. Now, what's pshat? That lo yamantri means Moshe Rabbeinu was a kvat peh. He started off a kvat peh. He wasn't able to speak. Kvat lashon. And the Medrash says on Elad Dvarim Shadiba Moshe that after 40 years, Elad Dvarim Shadiba Moshe became a medaba. Moshe became a person of speech. Moshe, the person that started off that wasn't able to speak, that was stuttering, became a good orator. How do you know he's a good orator? Because the whole Dvarim is Elad Dvarim Shadiba Moshe. Moshe could speak l'rachza. He could talk a whole chumash. He could talk. So this is what Elohim to be like Lishani. Hashem says, 40 years ago when you started off, you didn't have a mouth, you didn't know how to speak. So take a stick, hit it. That's the way you know how to talk to people. So you hit it. But now that you're a speaker, now you know how to use your speech. You didn't believe in me. What do you mean? You didn't believe in yourself. If you don't believe that you can now speak to the people and they're going to listen to you, that's the chil Hashem. Like the sheni to make a kedusha is to make a kiddush Hashem. You were able to speak now. You didn't do it. You went back to 40 years. You didn't believe that I said you're going to become Elad Dvarim Shadiba Moshe. You're going to be merapa from speech. You're going to be able to speak. You don't believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, it's the chil Hashem. So what's the Kiddush Hashem? What's the opposite? Kiddush Hashem is I believe myself. Why do I believe myself? Not because I'm arrogant. Not because, me. What? There's no me, there's no you. That's the end of the conversation. Everyone over here is an expression of Imanikan Hakalkan. We're all just expressions of the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's in all different types of forms. And every person has to do you. Do it as best as you can, whatever you're doing in this world. Make sure you're doing it begaiva, with a godless, with a bigness. And it's not about you. It's never about you. Never ever think for 1 second that it's about you. The moment you think about it's you, then you have to work about shiftless, you have to work at that, then you have to work at it, then you have to think your machshava should always be imanikan hakalkan. The Eibusha gave you koiches, the Eibusha gave you certain talents, the Eibusha gave you a certain life, and he wants you to make a kiddush Hashem by just being you to the fullest extent. And then is manikan, is hakalkan. Everyone's here, and the Rebbeinu Shalom is here, and the presence of Hashem is present. And this is what emesa nov is. This is what true humility is. True humility is not an opposite of arrogance. Because I think it's what he's saying is, ba'oimik, it doesn't fear us. It goes both ways. It could do the same thing anyway.
It's two different people.
What?
The Kohen.
I said that's why I said by hektim. I want to tell you that sometimes in Teres Baal Shem we're talking about the same guy, the same person. It could be a guy that could be a tuma. It could be a tuma. If it's a tuma, if it's about I as a separate I, then it's b'tamas atmei, taras atorim. But if the I is about the I of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's being present, it's b'taras atmeim. That's the ultimate freedom of everything, of the Yetzer Hara and all the struggles that you have. Is just the recognition. It's not about you. Stop throwing up when they're giving you covet. And that's just the marshal. When you stop throwing up about giving covet, it's like, it's not about me. I understand you want to give me covet, but it's not because you're giving me covet. You even covet to what I represent and what I'm presenting to the world in this narrative that we're all created. There's a big story here. Everyone's playing a part. This person's part is that you do this to him. This person's part is you put him on your shoulders, you dance to him because he's a chassan. That's his part, and that's your part, and your part. Everyone do your part. And that's like the Shane. This is the Kiddush Hashem.